Welcome everyone to this week's Founder Chats. I'm really excited to be here today with Sophia Yang, who's the founder and executive director of Threading Change. And if you don't know about Threading Change, I'm excited to hear how it's evolved since I last heard your pitch, Sophia. I know you pitched with us at, which one was it? It was the women's pitch in March 2021, I believe. But I know you've been doing a lot since then, and I know you've been working with one of our coaches, Charlyne, who's fantastic. And I'm really excited to hear where you're at. But my understanding of Threading Change and what I have written here, I'm going to read it out because there's so much great content here, and I'm going to forget all the little bits and pieces. But Threading Change is a youth-led, not-for-profit organization working to achieve the 6 Fs. So that is a feminist, fossil fuel-free fashion future. So you envision a future where fashion is ethical as well as circular, rooted in justice, with climate, gender, and racial equity at the forefront. It's a lot of difficult and impressive work that you're doing and things that you're taking on here. So I don't want to take up too much space trying to explain it all and want to pass that over to you. But for those first who haven't been to one of our IG Lives before, my name is Melanie Ewan, and I am one of the managing partners and co-founders at Volition, where we create knowledge and connections in global startup ecosystems. And thank you to everyone who's here today. And for those who are sending hearts and saying how you're doing, love that so much. Feel free to put in the chat how you're feeling today and let us know where you're joining from. So we're gonna have about 30 minutes of a fairly casual conversation, interview style kind of conversation. But if you're joining us here now or on IGTV or YouTube later, please do feel free to say hello and contribute any questions that you might have for Sophia as well. So we're going to start kind of with the origin story of Threading Change, get into some incredible work that you're doing, some lessons learned that you've had, as well as how we can support you in what you're achieving and going to continue to achieve. So I'm going to pass this over to you, Sophia. Again, welcome. Let us know maybe a little bit, maybe introduce yourself a little bit, introduce Threading Change, and then we can get into the details.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Melanie, and also Volition for having me today. My name is Sophia. My Chinese name is Yang Yacheng, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. And I'm currently on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, aka Vancouver. So I've been a climate advocate, later turned activist ever since I was 12, when I read an article interviewing David Suzuki on what young people can do to raise awareness about global warming. Back then it was called in 2007. So it was a no-brainer for me to go to the University of British Columbia, where I studied forestry, specializing in global perspectives, policy, and also natural resources conservation. But for myself, I would say that, being a climate advocate for over a decade now, I always felt like I was interested in a lot of different topics. I remember when I attended the United Nations Climate Conference COP24 in December 2018, it was an experience of a lifetime to be able to, actually be at the negotiation space where the COP21 Paris Agreement was ratified in 2015. But it was also extremely overwhelming because you have so many different topics there. There was like indigenous people's platforms, climate adaptation, renewable energy, ocean acidification, that I felt like I was interested in too many things. But when I went to COP25 1 year later, that was in Madrid that year, I stumbled into the 1-year anniversary signing event of the UN Sustainable Fashion Charter. And that's when it really clicked for me that I had a huge interest and passion for fashion and sustainability and fashion and climate change. The IPCC report that just got released yesterday really puts into perspective how we don't really have any time left really to reverse catastrophic climate change, and that fossil fuel extraction and gross capitalism is hugely responsible. And the fashion industry is a huge contributor to this dilemma that we have right now. So I feel like, making my life's mission and goal through Threading Change to spread the change is really what I'm passionate about and what I felt like I was called to do. So it's a bit of intro about myself, my background, and also what led me to really become, I guess, a youth leader in this space.
I have so many things just popped up in my mind, and I'd be curious to understand with Threading Change, because I know I haven't read the IPCC report yet, but I have seen people coming out saying there's a lot of emphasis on technology as one of the saving, one of the ways that are going to save the world, and that we just need more technology, and not to ask you to have a stance on that or anything, but I'm curious about with Threading Change and other work you do as a climate activist, how are you looking to, as you say, spread the change? So what place within this kind of like dialogue of how do we change the future, what place does threading change have in that?
Yeah, that's a great
Big
question.
question.
um, I will try to answer to the best of my ability. So I think, being Threading Change as a youth-led not-for-profit organization, we're in a unique perspective to sometimes do get a seat at the table, but then sometimes also feeling tokenized and also feel that we're not taken seriously. So for
Right.
us, we want to make sure that all the work that we do, that we are professional to be taken seriously, but also that we have a myriad of different solutions, because we really don't think fashion and the fashion problem with overconsumption and intense greenwashing by lots of big brands is really solvable by just holding industry accountable or telling consumers to buy less. It's really a combination of both. So what we do at Threading Change is we operate on a tri-impact model. So the first pillar of that is education and awareness. We have a monthly webinar series called Textile Talks, where we bring together different industry leaders, entrepreneurs, fashion designers, youth policy experts, and more to talk about and ideate on what are the solutions possible and how can consumers and industry work together. And with special surprise announcement coming next week on what the next season is going to be about. The previous one was really demystifying different trends and myths in the fashion industry. The second pillar is our global innovation story map, which is kind of like the more like product that we have, if you were to say in founder entrepreneur terms. And the global innovation story map essentially is a platform where different fashion brands of the highest ethical standards, so whether these are people with recycling take back programs, circular materials, they have women of color on their board, they have equitable and fair wages, or their supply chains are very transparent. These companies, and a lot of them are very local, they're featured on the story map to be able to showcase and cross-pollinate different ideas with those that are new to the fashion space, that have no idea where to start in creating a brand, but they want to get into it. And because our funding might potentially come from some different Canadian funders, right now we're more focused on getting some Canadian brands, but we've connected with now over 50 brands all across the world. And more than half of them are from lots of countries where they are very textile intensive countries, such as Bangladesh, China, and India. But most of the work is being done by women that are reclaiming their power, and some who have escaped modern day slavery and child labor in the industry. So to be able to share their story through our innovation story map has been so powerful. And we got invited to speak at the World Circular Economic Forum, which is happening in September this year. And we're going to be releasing the map and officially launching it on September 13th when we're presenting. So we're very excited, and our team is all youth-led, under 30 years old, and our board is all women of color. So we definitely stand by the map and everything that we believe in. And the third one that the third pillar is really about research and policy. And we say this because, I've been to so many different talks, and I've been in the audience, I've been on the speakers panel, and the question I always get is people asking, like, what can I do to help? I feel like for this problem, we're really beyond just saying fashion is bad, fashion is very pollution intensive. Like, a lot of people know that already. People want to know what they can do to help. It's just kind of like the previous argument of people saying, take your bike to work, take shorter showers, and people think, but there are more systemic changes. So our research and policy side is really giving, young people, or even anyone that's interested, the different skills to be able to write to brands, to be able to talk to brand owners, to be able to recognize greenwashing when it's apparent, and to be able to write their MLAs, their MPs, policy experts in an area about why we need to move beyond just thinking about what we can do on an individual basis, but what different policies can a city enact to have better recycling? What policies can a country enact to have better extended producer responsibility policy, which is EPR, which means that, for example, if Nike made this sweatpants, they're the ones responsible for recycling it, not the consumer after it was sold. In some places like Sweden, this has already been enacted, so it's definitely possible. So just to summarize, the first pillar is education awareness. The second one is our global innovation story map through storytelling. And the third one is policy and research. And we think with these three working together, it's really been enlightening to see how many people care about the issue, but are really ready to get started beyond just being aware, but moving the dial on what's possible.
Incredible. And congratulations on that upcoming launch of the story map. That's really exciting. So is that going to be accessible to anyone if they go to threadingchange.org? as of September 13th?
Yes, yeah. So it's startingchange.org, and if you go click on our programs and the story map, it's going to be viewable. It is going to be hosted on a third-party app, so it'll take you to another webpage, but all the links are there. And we're currently also welcoming any stories from brands that are of high ethical standards. So if you go on our website, startingchange.org/story map, if you're a brand owner, or if you know a fashion brand or a jewelry brand or even a lifestyle brand that deserves to be featured, we would love to feature you. And to give a bit of context on the story map, part of the reason why it was created was that when I attended the COP conference, I felt like all the people that got all the airtime were the people that were the exact perpetrators of immense climate emissions. A lot of the big brands doing the greenwashing. There's thousands of brands around the world that are leading the way in climate and sustainability, racial equity, and gender equity that don't get a seat at the table. So our hope with the story map is to take these stories to the COP conference years down the line and show to investors at the conference, these are the brands that deserve to get recognized because they're actually changing the game. They're not over here tooting their horns, talking about how great they are. I'm not going to say any names, but I think some of us might be able to guess. Greenwashing in fashion is a huge problem, and the story map seeks to address that.
Okay. I was going to also ask, why did you choose fashion?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've always really been interested in fashion. I made the decision in 2018 to thrift and vintage shop and gift swap all my clothes. And at first it was just like a fun thing because I was, like thrift shopping more. And I lived on Commercial Drive in Vancouver at the time. And if you know Commercial Drive, it's a lot of like eclectic people. And every day people would be like, where did you get that from? That's so cool. I love that. I love your outfit. And I realized that all the clothes people loved were thrifted vintage pieces because they were different, they were unique. And I feel like, in today's world, there's this pressure to conform, to get the latest trends, to really, push to conform. But underneath that, the tip of the iceberg is conforming, but below that, it's really gross consumption. And I thought about this the other day. I was like, say, I have like 100 articles of clothing, and most of us probably have more, right? Like jackets, hoodies, bras, all this stuff. We probably have 200 or 300 pieces of clothing, or maybe even less, maybe more, shoes included. I know some people love their shoes. And there's 7 million people in the world. Think about how much clothing that is. And think about how much more is in the stores, how much more are in the landfills, how much more being produced. The amount of clothing we have on this planet might even be more than even some organisms. That's just how insanely overconsumption, like in that model that we are. And the fact is, what other people have said, circular economy experts, recycling in many ways is a hoax. There's a lot of things that you cannot actually recycle. Most of it goes to a landfill. Same thing with clothing. There is some clothing recycling technology, but they are not recycling clothing at nearly the exponential rate it takes to really backtrack of how much climate emissions we're actually, emitting. On top of that, with fashion being one of the largest contributors to modern day slavery. And I also chose fashion because I heard this really good quote that was saying that, fashion is like the Trojan horse of industries. It has all the same problems as all the other industries. It means extraction, gross capitalism, slave labor, climate emissions, water pollution, but it's hidden behind this veil of glamour, fashion shows and different seasons, when really it's just as bad. And I think that's why I really want to make sure that we understand that beyond just, spending your dollars on this item of clothing, you're also voting with your money in supporting this extraction, this gross consumption pattern that we don't really need. So to answer quite simply, at the UN conference, there was youth organizations about renewable energy, about nature, about adaptation, and there was nothing about fashion when it was amongst one of the most polluting industries in the world. So I thought out to create one. I didn't know this path would happen for me, but I felt very inspired to do it. And I felt like this feeling in my gut when COVID first happened that it was my calling. So I just tried my best, and here I am. Yeah.
That's incredible. Again, I have so many follow-up questions. I know we have limited time. And thanks, Isabel's in the chat saying that she loves the vintage stores in the Commercial Drive area. This is in Vancouver for those watching that we're talking about. But I have a friend who thrift shops all the time, and she gave me the tip to go to different neighborhoods in the area that you're in, or any areas that you're visiting, to go to the thrift shops, because depending on that neighborhood and the kind of people who live there is what you're gonna find in the thrift stores. So if you're looking for really high-end things, go to the high-end areas and go to the thrift stores there. So I didn't even think about that when I was younger. I just went to the closest thrift store and I was like, this looks like all the stuff I already own.
Yeah.
It was all like people who, like me, who were giving their clothes to that place. So that was a fun little tip. But I think like the recycling piece is really interesting. I come from like a waste management background, so have a particular interest in that, but also come from I think a generation that we were taught in school all the benefits of recycling. That's gonna like, it wasn't even when I was growing up something that was gonna like help change the world. It was just something that was drilled into recycle. And to this day, I'm curious about if someone was like you in 2018, where you're like, I'm gonna just shift to this different way of consumption where I'm swapping and going thrift store shopping, also recycling. A lot of people I know don't know that you can recycle textiles, and they just put it in the garbage. That's another side note. And like you're saying, sometimes it doesn't actually recycle anyways, but don't even know that there's that potential option. But my question being like, if someone were to decide they want to do this, they look in their closet, do an audit, say they have like 300 items of clothing, and it's kind of like a tangent, but what could be their first step in getting to where you're at? Like, how do they, should they recycle things? Like, what would be the approach to, like, I guess, like downsizing if you're like, recycling clothing doesn't even work? Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
If you have an answer for that.
Yeah, I get asked this question all the time, and I'm happy that now more people are double vaxxed. So there's like more solutions I can suggest.
Right. Yes.
I would say that, it's really important to make an inventory of your closet, because when you do that, you also truly comprehend for the first time just how much stuff that you have. And many studies have shown that actually we only really wear about 10 to 20% of what's in our closet. And this goes for like shoes as well. And I honestly can say I'm the same. I actually have a lot of clothes because, during my phase of thrifting a lot, because it was cheaper, I had more stuff, right? So there's different factors you have to factor in. It's like the cost, the convenience, but also like, what do I actually wear? And we'll see that a lot of us end up slightly things that we already have, which is a slightly different color, slightly different style. So having an inventory, whether it's, pictures on your phone, write it down in your journal. And that scene in Clueless where Cher gets like the computer to match her outfit. So there's actually people right now creating that using AI technology and different apps where you can actually take pictures of your clothes and then have different outfits match with you on the map as a way to track your clothing consumption. I think that's brilliant. Like, it's not necessarily because you need to get help matching an outfit, but it's more so like, but like keep being aware of like what you have and what you actually don't need. So after you do the inventory, take a look at your clothes. If it's easy, I would, get it washed or get it dry cleaned if it's affordable for you. And now I would do a clothing swap. You could do it outside if you are uncomfortable with COVID. You could also wear a mask, but if you're double vaxxed with close friends, inside is also okay. And I think clothing swaps is such a great way to share style, share stories. A lot of the best clothes I have were from clothing swaps, and my friends have worn it when they went traveling, and now it's mine. So I think that's like a really fun way to spice things up. In terms of if you actually just want to get rid of it and donate it, clothing donations is a big hoax. 90% of the clothes that goes for donations at Valley Village or Salvation Army does not get resold or donated. They go to the landfill. The worst part is they go to the landfill in countries like Haiti and Ghana and Kenya, where they're filling up their landfills at an exponential rate. There's a market called Katamento in Ghana where it's just hundreds of billions of tons of clothing from mostly North America. There's more awareness about that now, but it's also affecting their local textiles economy. So what I would say is definitely make sure if you're going to be donating things, I would avoid going to Valley Village or Salvation Army. I would look at different donation centers of women's shelters in your area. Downtown Eastside Women's Shelter in Vancouver is a good example because they actually will give the clothing to those in need. And they are actually only really taking like good quality, so you can be rest assured that it's not being sold for profit. It's being used for those that are really in need. You could also look at Fab Cycle. Sometimes there's also donation bins the city has. There's different ways you can reuse the clothing. Fab Cycle, for example, Vancouver takes your clothing scraps and be like old towels, and they remake it into carpets and sometimes like couch covers and like ski suits. And you could even, another thing that just a shameless plug, if you go on a global story map and look at which brands in your local area are doing what, you could even find small business owners that are doing creative textiles projects with your old scraps, right? They could be making like a new carpet, they could be making a tapestry, they could be making an art installation. There's always artists I know that are looking for clothing scraps, but they have to go to the garbage to find them. So you'd be surprised, even posting in your local buy nothing group or buns or your local trading group. I recently got some free clothes because I traded some stuff I didn't use anymore, and I didn't have to spend any money, and I helped. It's like really like that circular economy within your local neighborhood. Get creative, like being just throwing it in a donation bag and giving to Value Village is the lazy way. It's also actually the unethical way. There's a lot of good creative ways you can get things sorted. And I feel like I'm going on a tangent here, but if you want more information, there's more on Threading Change as well. And go into local thrift stores and vintage stores and also befriending all the folks there. It's also a great way to give back. My favorite I'll recommend in Vancouver, it's called Community Thrift and Vintage, and they employ women in the downtown east side to work there. So that's another way, if you're shopping there, you're really giving back to the community. In Victoria, Patch is a really good one. They also employ women locally, and also a lot of the proceeds go to women's shelters. So yeah, if you do your research a little bit, if you go on our website and our Instagram, we have different stores in Vancouver and Victoria we recommend. If you have any you want to recommend for other parts of Canada, let us know. We can also make posts about that as well.
Yeah.
It's really just about threading this change to help people realize that there's really creative ways to make fashion circular. So let's start doing that.
Cool. Amazing. Thank you for all of that. That's great. And we also have someone, Average Watermelon, I don't know their actual names, saying, totally agree with the biggest perpetrators getting the largest platforms to speak on ethical fashion. It's so counterintuitive. Thank you for, mentioning that. Oops, I accidentally started messaging something. I'm gonna put that away. All right, so thank you for those who are joining and who've just joined again. Hello, hello. We only have a few minutes left and I have so much more that I want to get through with you. I think something important to me is, obviously you are very eloquent and well-researched on this topic, and you know a lot about it. You've gone and sat on these different panels around the world. You're going to be speaking at the World Circular Economic Forum. I know you'll also be a keynote speaker at the UN Fashion Alliance, Sustainable Recovery through Sustainable Fashion, as well as you're going to be speaking at something called Walrus Talks as part of a side event at the World Circular Economic Forum. So I know obviously there's lots going, you're getting lots of interest, you have a lot to say on this topic. So everyone please make sure to like and share and connect with Sophia and with Threading Change, and I'm sure you have so many more tips like those that you just shared with us. But I'd be curious about, what is your vision for Threading Change?
So our mission is what guides us every day, the 6Fs, feminist, fossil fuel-free fashion future. So that's really touching on embedding intersectionality and equity and circularity in the industry. And fossil fuel-free is a big one because a lot of these extractive economies are benefiting those at the top in global north countries, while it's a global race to the bottom for which country can we take from the most, which country can we get the cheapest labor from. So our goal for Threading Change is really to not only raise awareness about this topic, which is the human dimensions of fashion just as much as the climate ones as well, but also to ensure that people are understanding where their clothes really come from and how they can be a change maker in their own ways, whether it's from being a consumer, whether it's from being an activist, whether it's from purchasing less things, talking to their neighbors, or actually joining the industry in of itself. The fashion industry needs people that are not in fashion. You don't have to be in fashion to be it. Like, look at me. Like, I don't have a fashion background whatsoever. I'm also not the traditional standard of beauty. And that's something that Threading Change is also trying to promote more, is really this this equity and part of the equation. You look at magazine catalogs, it's all European models, white, blonde, blue eyes, very, very skinny, able-bodied, and that is not the true definition of beauty, and that is not reality. Everyone's beautiful in their own way. We need to have more representation of LGBTQ plus, of people from different areas of work, of people from different races. When I got invited to speak at the UN event, I obviously was very flattered and I accepted, but I noticed right away that I was the only youth speaker and I was the only person of color speaker. And these things do not go unnoticed because representation matters. You need to see people such as yourself in these spaces to feel safe, to feel welcome. So for us, like, I had actually someone asked me during one of my pitch decks, why is your board all women of color? Don't you think that's actually more discriminatory? And all I said, well, the fact that I'm the only woman here pitching at this pitch competition and that everyone else is a man and that everyone working in these factories in these countries are all women of color and they only get paid 10 cents an hour is the answer why we need to be having and centering women of color in these discussions. So our goal for threading change is really to, embed equity in everything. That's climate equity, gender equity, racial equity, and show that you don't have to fit this mold to be in fashion because everybody wears clothes. It's something we should all care about. And I just want to end off, I guess, with this part also saying that, there's a lot of gender inequity that happens as well. Out of the top 10 fashion companies globally, only 1 out of 10 is a female CEO, only 1 out of 10 is non-white. And most of these companies are also based in Europe. And so let's have billionaires in the equation too, such as Zara. The founder is a billionaire, and a lot of it is from the exploitation of garment workers, of women's bodies, and also setting unrealistic beauty standards. So, for threading change, like our mission beyond just kind of the more formal education aspect and policy is also to help create this movement that many other organizations are also leading the way, such as Fashion Revolution, Clean Clothes Campaign, and also Remake Our World. We really look up to them in the way that we do our change making. There's a lot of change happening. It's brewing. It's coming to the surface. Greta Thunberg actually was just on the cover of Vogue Scandinavia, where she talked about the impact of the fashion industry. So you can see that young people are really interested in it as well. But we cannot have this movement be led by those that are benefiting from the system. It needs to feature diverse populations. It needs to feature gender diversity, racial diversity, all of that. And that's where I feel like we really strive to really embed this equity across all that we do. So our goal is to build a global movement of young people that are passionate about fashion, passionate about change, about embedding intersectionality in everything that we do. And I think we're off to a good start. There's a long way to go. We're less than 1 year old. We're thankful for all the opportunities we've been given, and we have acknowledged that we definitely went through some hard times. But nothing can be done without hard work. I'm really excited to see where this next phase of growth will take us.
Incredible. There were just hearts all over the place just then. Obviously, a lot of people are relating to what you say and are excited to be hearing you talking about this and really care about it as well. So again, thanks to those in our audience. I saw people with emojis that were exciting and thanks. So clearly this is something that a lot of people are keen to learn about, learn with you on that journey. And speaking of the journey, how can we as your community help you on yours? What can we do to support you here today?
Yeah, definitely. So the story map will be launched on September 13th. We'd appreciate if you check it out. If you could please recommend brands that you think deserve to be featured on there. And also we're currently, I feel like we're always fundraising as a not-for-profit organization. It's always something that we're trying to do. So if you have any connections to funders or grants that you've gotten successfully previously, we'll love any recommendations. You can email us at hello@threadingchange.org. We are also continually, looking for different speakers that be interested in joining us on Textile Talks. Our next season topic has been decided. I think it's going to be very interesting. If you know anyone that's really passionate about fashion sustainability, we would love to hear from them. And I would say lastly, what you can do to help is, tag us in different photos or posts that you see where you're like, this is something that Threading Change should know because this is a brand that's really changing the game. Maybe because there's so many brands out there where they're like, okay, diversity. Here's a Black model, here's an Asian model, here's a Latino model, done. And it's not like that. That's tokenizing. There's brands that are leading the way that are doing things a bit differently, where they're actually committed to doing the work even behind the scenes. If you know brands like that, tag us. We would love to get in contact with them because it is really about a global movement. And one last thing, if you're a young person, we're currently looking for volunteers for Story Map and also communications volunteers. If you have any of those skills, please get in touch with us on Instagram or email at hello@threadingchange.org. More people make less work and also a bigger community. So we'd love to have you join us.
Fantastic. And where can people get in touch with you if they want to ask you more questions or if they want to get involved with any of the asks that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so you can email us at hello@threadingchange.org. I check that email very regularly. We're also very active on Instagram, so feel free to just DM us on Instagram as well. We also have an intake form on our website, which is threadingchange.org. So if you go through there, we'll see our comments as well. Yeah, so thank you for anyone that's interested. If you're interested in volunteering, we're always looking for volunteers. So yeah, you go to our website, threadingchange.org. All the information is there.
Fantastic. And you're also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So all the things at
Yes.
Threading Change. So everyone go like and share and comment and tag Threading Change in those pictures and such. And I know we've run out of time. So usually I would love to also understand, I know I asked you some like bigger questions that took up space, but I love to know a bit more about if you have any tips for anyone who's just starting on their entrepreneur journey. I don't know if you have like a sound bite kind of tips. So it sounds like you've been through a lot, and you're growing a nonprofit too, which I'm seeing more and more and more people in the startup space that are growing nonprofits, which is a different kind of approach altogether, and is really has its own challenges as well.
Definitely.
So if you have any soundbite tips, then to kind of take us home with, that would be amazing. I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say my tip is don't compare yourself to others and carve out your own path. I think you can definitely be very inspired by other people. I have lots of people that inspire me, you know, like David Suzuki, obviously being a very apparent one, as I mentioned in the beginning. But I think it's important to compare to carve out your own path, sorry, because you are always your biggest competitor. It's always, how can I outdo myself? How can I grow from this? How can I get up from this failure? You know, being an entrepreneur, I really think it's like a testament of how you can handle failure and how you can handle bad news and disappointment. And I think it takes this level of bravery to do it. But once you go over a hurdle and another one, you feel more connected to those around you, to your community. And don't be afraid to ask for help is another one I would say. Like, I really felt like I was on this alone. I really felt like, you know, I want to do it like this, so I'm going to just like do it. But when you get help and you get, you know, clarity on different options of doing something, when you see how eager people are to be part of this community, it just gives you even more of a drive to want to change, if that makes sense. I think, you know, I forgot this exactly what the quote says, but it's like, if you want to do something fast, go alone, but if you want to do something well, go together. And I think for entrepreneurship, it's really true. Like, even if you are a solo founder, as I am, the amount of support I receive from, you know, my old school, which is UBC, from those around me, from friends and family, has just been so instrumental to getting where I am now. And so asking for help and offering help and just generally being a good person, I think are all like very important tips. But yeah, those are a few tips. So like, don't compare yourself to others, carve your own path, but be inspired, and also don't be afraid to ask for help. So I would say.
Amazing. All right. So you said today how you were feeling, your one word was inspired, and I think you probably inspired a lot of people here today. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us your story, but also to share your thoughts on the fashion industry, to share your vision, your team's vision, what you're accomplishing. We're all very excited for you, and very excited for what's coming up this fall. And I'm looking forward to seeing the We've Launched the Story story map, and being able to go check that out, because I think it can be very difficult for those of us who are trying to navigate making those, like, transitioning into those changes and not knowing who to trust and what is greenwashing, for instance. So really appreciate that. And for those who are just joining us now, hello. We're just wrapping up, but this story or this interview will live on Instagram's, on IGTV is what I meant to say, and on YouTube as well. So you can go back and learn more about Sophia, learn more about Threading Change and the work that they're doing. And again, just really appreciate your time. Is there anything that we didn't get to touch on that you had wanted to mention?
I think what I'll mention is, you know, like, we obviously have a really strong focus on fashion, but we're also really interested in doing JEDI work, so that's justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and also decolonization. We talk about decolonizing fashion a lot. As a quick example, we did an event two events in May called for Asian Heritage Month fundraiser, where we fundraised almost $1,400 for two organizations in Canada working on combating anti-Asian racism. So just because fashion is our focus, we also do a lot of work on anti-racism, the circular economy, and also youth engagement. So if there's things you want to get to know about those aspects too, we're definitely all ears. We're not restricted to fashion, although that is our passion, as cheesy as that sounds.
No, not at all.
But yeah, just want to mention that. And if you have any questions about that, definitely also get in touch as well.
Yeah, and I know that this is something that that's really important to you, talking about youth entrepreneurship and engaging youth in these conversations. So I think that's something we'll have to come back to at a future date. In October, we're going to be centering our content and our pitch event on youth, and particularly like younger youth spectrum, like 14 to 25-ish youth, because I know youth today goes up to 30, 39, which I appreciate, but I'm going to focus on slightly younger youth. But I would love to hear more about your thoughts on that importance of youth entrepreneurship and how we can engage
definitely
people of all ages, but particularly younger entrepreneurial people, and people, because I think for many of us who work in the startup space, who work with youth, it's so incredibly energizing and inspiring, and also I don't know, there's lots of feels around it, because I know there's a lot of pressure put on younger generations to solve all the problems, and you grew up in a very different climate than we did. Myself, I'm 35 soon, but I know that even like 20, even 30-year-olds, even 25-year-olds and younger grew up in a very different climate, and I think I have a lot of concerns around like mental health, and around like how can we support these generations, your generation, who's taking on so much. So anyways, that's my tangent, is that in October we'll be talking more about this. And it's something that's really important to us at Volition, and I appreciate that it's also important to you and something that you talk about and part of your big vision for threading change. So last question, and then we'll wrap up. And I apologize for going over time. I just obviously love what you're doing. Last question is something I ask every entrepreneur. What brings you joy right now?
Oh, this is what that's a good question. Does it have to be fashion related, or like anything?
No.
Anything? Okay.
Honestly, what brings you joy right now?
What brings me joy right now?
Doesn't have anything to do with your business if you don't want it to.
Yeah, I would, okay, I would say what brings me joy right now is that I'm seeing more of every type of person, whether that's like models, just people in general, companies, actively thinking about what representation means. And I think for decades it was a lot of representation is the goal. I think now people understand representation is the absolute bare minimum, and that it's not the goal, it's what should be the standard. And I think this is bringing me joy, because I'm seeing I'm still not seeing many people that look like me represented in fashion or in music or on the big screens. But Awkwafina, you might know Awkwafina, she's recently been casted in a Marvel movie as the main character. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that's awesome, because she is not the traditional type of beauty, or she's not the standard of beauty. I think she's freaking amazing, and in every possible way. And it's so true. You see someone like yourself up on screen, you feel so proud and connected. So it's bringing me joy to see more, Asian Americans and just people of color in general being represented. I think there's slightly more representation in fashion, although it's happening at a really slow rate. So I hope that I can be more joyful in the future to see more representation in that area too. But something that's bringing me joy right now. I think about representation a lot, and I think it's very important.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sophia. Really appreciate, again, your time here today. And if you want to learn more about Threading Change, go to threadingchange.org. And as we mentioned, you can also find at Threading Change on all the socials. So once again, this is Sophia Yang, who's the founder and executive director of Threading Change. And I will be back here next week with Sydney Hampshire, who's the co-founder of Click and Push Accessibility. So looking forward to that as well. I really enjoy all my founder chats I get to have, and get to know you on a much deeper level than just watching your pitch at an Amplify pitch event. So thank you so much for being here. I'm sure we'll be in touch, because as I mentioned, I'd love to connect with you about youth entrepreneurship in particular. But otherwise, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and to everyone here as well.
Thank you so much for having Melanie. This was great. Let's chat about that in October. I'm very stoked.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Yeah. Alrighty. Bye, everyone.
Bye.